Hi, I'm Josh from Vacuums R Us and Sewing 2 in Colorado. Today I'm going to show you what we do for the standard service and maintenance of a Sebo X7. This particular model is an X7 PET, but really this applies to any X7. And realistically, if you have an X4, this is going to be a very similar service process. They're very similar machines. So this machine is in for its free service. We do service every 2 years for our red carpet customers who purchase their vacuum with the red carpet service plan. That's part of the deal. It looks to me like this machine had some kind of a bag blowout, most likely, which may be why they brought it in for service, because they blew the bag out. Who knows? I can tell because there's some debris in the bag chamber here. The filter is unusually dirty. So reading the ticket, it looks like replace bag and filter, so that it doesn't look like there's anything wrong with it per se. It's just in for the service. I'm going to plug it in real quick. It looks like it does not have a bag, so I'm going to plug it in with the bag door off just to listen to the motors, make sure that everything is copacetic. No unusual sounds or anything like that. It sounds good to me. So one of the first things I do on services is I will tie the cord up so that the cord doesn't flop all over the place. I'll zip tie the cord together before I start taking the machine apart. On this particular machine, I'm going to remove the entire upper housing. This filter's going to get thrown away, so we'll kick this out of here. Oh, baby. So this button right here will release the upper housing on these. Split it into two parts. I actually have the wrong filter here. This is not the PET filter. This is the hospital grade filter. So the X7 PET specifically comes with a carbon charcoal filter, which gets rid of odors. So you can actually hear it. It actually has charcoal in it. And that's super important because pet dander, as it builds up in the bag, will start to develop odor. So a true pet vacuum, a real pet vacuum, is going to have some kind of charcoal filtration as this does. So I'm going to have to swap that filter out that they put with it. That's the wrong filter. They also did not give me this filter. This is the final filter as well. And this really, you can tell they got a Sebo X7 PET for a reason. They do some vacuuming. This machine's only 2 years old and this filter's already pretty blasted. On this machine, it's only been in service for about 2 years, so we're not going to we're not going to go all the way in, but we're going to go quite a ways in here. I can tell from the machine it's got some mileage on it. I'll pop the brush roller out. All Sebos, the brush roller comes out with just a single button push. So I push this button, my brush roller end cap is going to pop off for me. Set that aside. I'll pull the brush out. We'll service that momentarily. I got rice coming out all over the place here, which likely was used in the showroom when they were testing the machine. And the fact that the rice is falling out leads me to believe that there's possibly a clog in the machine, which may be actually the reason the customer brought it in. I don't know. Not seeing a clog there. There's probably a clog elsewhere. Yeah, that's a lot of junk coming out. So I'm gonna pop the hood on this because I want to get into the main motor. See if there's any debris building up in there. And I'm gonna blow that out with an air compressor. Screws. There's only 3 screws to pop the hood. This right here is the brush roller release. It kind of pops inside of the hood. So this hood actually, if we look inside, it's really clean. I'm not even going to take that out to blow it out. There's nothing to blow out. Sebo's machines are really well sealed, so you don't get debris kind of creeping into the inside of the machine like you do with some other machines. Looks like I got some cobwebs there, but that's about it. The underside here is going to need a little bit of work. I'm going to take off my base plate here to give myself a little bit more room to work. This is clearly a pet vacuum. You can tell the buildup. You have the darker colored buildup right there, and after only 2 years, there's quite a bit of it there. You can also see the buildup here from a little bit of moist pickup. The grease from just the hair on pets will have a tendency to have a little bit of buildup. I'm going to pop this out, and I will show you how to put this unclogged door back in later. I'm going to go ahead and vacuum this stuff out. Overall, this machine is pretty well cared for. They're not beating it up. They definitely use it. It's definitely getting a workout. It's a good machine for them. That's for sure. This over time, I mean, these can be up to 30-year machines, and over time this just builds up. And so getting this stuff all chipped out, it's not like this is actually really impeding performance now, but over time it's going to build up, and eventually it's going to result in a clog. Eventually, that's part of the reason why we do the red carpet service, is to get people in the habit of doing these maintenance every 1 or 2 years. Because it's a lot easier to do simple stuff like this every couple of years for us than it is to see somebody after they've owned the machine for 12 stinking years, done zero maintenance, and then we have all of this buildup that's taken place over time. I didn't realize my camera wasn't grabbing all that stuff, but I think you get the idea what I was doing there. We do have a little bit of a hair buildup on this gear right here. Again, not much considering it's 2 years worth of heavy use. It's a really well designed machine. The hair doesn't get into this gear the way it does on like Dysons and stuff like that. So this is clean enough here for me from dry cleaning. I'm going to use isopropyl alcohol to take one more round at this. I prefer to use 90%, but I've only got 70 right now. We've been having a hard time getting 90%, honestly, since the beginning of the pandemic. So I'll let that sit just a little bit. I use isopropyl. It's a good cleaning agent, generally speaking. It's going to dissolve a lot of this goop down here, but it also evaporates quickly. So it's not like water, a water-based cleaning solution that I have to worry about seeping into the machine and getting the circuit board and stuff like that wet. With isopropyl alcohol, it evaporates rapidly, and I'm not going to damage the sensitive electronics that are on the other side of this machine. It also tends to deodorize, so when I have really nasty machines, this one's not bad, but when I have real rough machines, they can smell. A lot of the odor on a lot of these machines builds up around the brush roll and the brush roll compartment down here. On low filtration machines like Dyson, Shark, stuff like that, the cyclone assembly gets absolutely permeated with odor. But on these higher filtration machines, the odor doesn't really store up in the filters and bags because the bags are being disposed of regularly. So you don't have that huge odor buildup. But where you get the odor buildup is all this gunk down here that I just chipped off. So in addition to this eventually building up, it also creates odor. So I like to just spritz it with some isopropyl alcohol, kind of clean up down there. I think most customers never see the underside of this machine. They have no idea what we did here. And we're gonna get into cleaning the exterior, the parts that they do see later. Cleaning those parts of the machine does nothing to improve the performance of the machine. But what it does is, that's what they see, right? So all this stuff that we're doing down here matters, it improves the performance, but it doesn't really indicate to the customer that we actually did anything. So we do an external cleaning. It's kind of like, you take your if you take your car to the dealership for an oil change, they always offer to do like a free car wash. Same basic concept. So this is good enough for me right here. I'm gonna grab my base plate. So this is real built up, and I could douse this down with rubbing alcohol, but what I'm gonna actually do is I'm gonna take it to our utility sink, and I'm gonna actually wash this off with just a regular cleaning solution. It's just plastic, so there'll be no damage to it there. The brush roll, However, I do have a little bit of debris. A little bit of hair did manage to make it into the end of the brush roll there. I'm going to go clean this brush roller off, and the brush roll I'm actually going to clean with isopropyl alcohol. I'm not going to wash that. The only reason I could wash it, it's plastic inside, it's not going to damage it, but it takes a while for the inside to dry out, and I want to get this service finished, so I'm going to use isopropyl alcohol on it to clean it up. All right, so I'm going to show you how I get these brush rolls cleaned up. So step one, there's a lot of longer hair on this machine, so I'll just go ahead and take a razor blade. Typically, you just kind of cut the hair off on either side. Something that's really useful actually is a seam ripper, particularly if you're cleaning off a brush roller, you're not taking the brush roller out of the machine, you're just leaving it in the machine while you're cleaning it off. A seam ripper is a super handy tool to do that. You can buy that. Any sewing store will have all kinds of seam rippers. So then I pull off the big chunks, right? Definitely make sure I get the thread, any carpet fibers that might be on there, anything like that. Pull off the big chunks. And you'll see there's a lot of stuff that's still left on here, and that's where the wire wheel comes in. You got to be really cautious with the wire wheel, especially if you're dealing with cheap brush rollers. A lot of the Dyson brush rolls, Sharp brush rolls are something. They don't have a lot of bristle to begin with, and the bristle melts and breaks off really easily. So if you're going to use a wire wheel like this, you have to be really cautious. Don't put a lot of pressure on it. Go through real fast maybe so that it doesn't melt. This is a pretty slow moving wheel. So that's good enough for me. I'm going to take it back. I'm going to douse it down with some isopropyl alcohol, polish it off a little bit, and we're going to call it good. All right, so we're going to use isopropyl on this. As an aside, if you're dealing with vacuum cleaners that have metal brush rollers, like most Tikoni products, Riccar and Simplicity have both. They have a lot of metal brush rollers, which are fantastic. This little trick of using isopropyl alcohol is really good on those. You'll get all the goop off. They polish up really well. It's nice because you don't get water in the bearings and stuff like that. So again, I'm going to let that sit for a second or two. Should have an ISO brush. There we go. So this is just a regular chip brush, but I cut it off so that it's a little bit tougher, right? Go ahead and scrub a little bit. Get all that goop off that brush roll. This brush roll is nowhere near needing to be replaced, but it's just got a lot of buildup. And like I said previously, the reason that I worry about this, the reason that I care about this kind of goofy buildup that takes place here is primarily because of the odor. Eventually it starts to build up odor. I cannot remember if the X7 has noise dampening material around the motor, but a lot of these German vacuums have like a cloth noise dampening that surrounds the motor to make it quieter, which is a great idea, but if that cloth gets full of, if it starts to stink because the dirty air is going through and getting into it, then the vacuum begins to reek out for a while, right? And doing all these little steps of removing this type of stuff that kind of builds up odor makes a difference over time. All right, so that's a big difference there. Let's set that aside for now. This cloth is going to have to go in the wash. So this is the brush roller end cap. I'm going to clean this out a little bit. Again with my vacuum, my short brush. And I'm going to clean my end caps out, the brush roller. So the reason you see me using the vacuum in conjunction with this brush constantly is because if I just brush this debris off, right, it goes everywhere. Having the vacuum right there is constantly sucking the dirt away so it doesn't go into the air and get all over the place. I'll service 20 machines in this room in a day, and the amount of dirt that builds up over time if you're putting that many machines through your tech room is absolutely atrocious. So I'm going to go ahead and put the fully serviced brush roll back in, turn it a little bit, and it'll lock in right there. I am going to actually put some grease in this bushing right here. I'm using this is just a sewing machine grease that we have for our sewing machine services. You can use oil, like a 3-in-1 oil, and I may be wrong, I may be right, but I tend to prefer the grease. I think it's a little heavier and it tends to stay there a little bit better than oh, whoops, I forgot I did not put the lid back on yet. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna find my button. This is the brush roller release button. It only goes in one way. I'll go ahead and put my lid back on here. I didn't even really need to take this off. I took it off in case I did need to clean out, you know, any debris that had gathered up in there, but really it wasn't necessary, which isn't surprising for a machine that's this young, that it wouldn't actually have any buildup in there. But just to be thorough, to give you a better idea of what we're doing on service, in a couple of years, popping it out like that would be really important. I'm not quite getting seated. Nope, I'm good. After a couple of years, use, popping that hood, you would find some buildup of pet hair making its way in there, some dust making its way in there. And it's good to blow it out because it works its way into everything. I mean, essentially these things are, I mean, the basic function of a vacuum cleaner is the brush agitates, creates a vibration, which causes the debris to kick up. And then the idea is the airflow, it's going to pull all that debris in from around here, right? Clean the air and then spit it back out again. That is the idea behind how these things work. All right, so now we're going to put the unclogged door back on. This is always problematic for a lot of people because the spring has to fit in a very specific way. So there's a little spring right there. And on the machine, there's a notch right there that spring is going to set inside of. So the way I'm going to put this on is I'm going to catch that notch in that, and I'm going to go kind of bring it forward like this, right? So I'm going to catch the notch, and then I'm going to hold it down with one finger, and you can see that spring right there is right on there, right? And then I'm going to take this we washed up in the sink earlier, and I'm going to hook those in there and then push that down, and then it's going to hold it in. You'll see that trap door flips shut now. All right, so I'll put the screw in again. As always, I got the clutch all the way down so that I don't strip any screws out on this. Make sure the housing is seated well. Okay, so I'm going to finish up this housing real quick, and then we'll move on to the next step. So you see this is what I was talking about before, where we do some external cleaning to kind of let people know that, you know, we actually did something, make their vacuum pretty again. And we've got this white paint, which is all over the bottom of upright vacuums, and on canister vacuums it's on the power head. And it's just from banging into walls and stuff like that. So what I use denatured alcohol for this. And that's something that you can find in the paint thinners in the hardware store. Highly flammable, show caution. And it's kind of like, it's like almost a light paint stripper. It's not super caustic like actual paint stripper, but as you can see, these paint scuffs, it takes them right off. Now, I'm using a Scotch-Brite pad, which is a little bit rough. It does leave very small scratches on the surface of the machine. On a machine like this that's seen a couple years of service, that doesn't really matter because it's already got lots of micro scratches all over it, and removing the paint's going to make it look better. It's not a brand new machine, it's not going to look like a brand new machine, and so that's kind of the goal there, is to make it look better. I wouldn't suggest using a Scotch-Brite on a brand new machine. So if you're a vacuum store and you've got a floor model that you're working on, ixnay on the Scotch-Brite pad. It works really good to get these tough paint scrapes off, but it is going to dull the finish. The finish on this is already dulled, so this is a good solution on a 2-year-old machine that's seen a couple years worth of service, but not on a brand new machine. All right, so now that we've got that done, you can see there's this white film that's on there now, and that's going to come off momentarily. I'm going to hit with the brush again. So what you saw me do there was I took some all-purpose cleaner and kind of got the brush a little bit moist, right? before I started scrubbing with it. That kind of helps the debris to adhere to the brush. So for this purpose, it's like a Mr. Clean all-purpose cleaning solution. It doesn't really matter what you use. Some of our shops use Fabuloso. It's personal preference. It is heavily watered down, so it's about 1 part cleaning solution to about 10 parts water. If you don't water it down, you end up leaving like a residue of the cleaning solution on the machine. You'll see, just polish it off. The cleaning solution, that really mild cleaning solution, is taking off that white film that the denatured alcohol left behind, and it's just generally cleaning the machine. It looks a lot better now. So that is good enough for me. It looks like about 10 times better than it did when it came in. And so we're going to move on to the upper housing, the back compartment now, which was also in relatively rough shape. So this is actually a really important step on any machine that you're cleaning. The back compartment needs to be really clean before it leaves after service. The issue is any debris that makes it into the back compartment, and I think they put a bag in wrong somehow. I don't know how. It's got multiple safety systems to keep you from doing that, but who knows? Maybe a kid was using it, I don't know. But when you get debris in the back compartment, ultimately that debris hits your filter, your pre-motor filter, and then what gets through the filter goes directly into the motor, which is gonna shorten the lifespan of your motor. So it's super important during service that we clean out the back compartments thoroughly. So I am gonna moisten the brush. I'm using a long bristle on this. And we'll do the same with the back door. All right, so I'm gonna actually take this back to the wire wheel and kind of clean this brush up a little bit as well as part of the service. I'm gonna grab a bag and put that in there. I'm gonna grab the correct filter, and we'll get this thing wrapped up. All right, so for our grand finale here, we're gonna do our final test. We got the machine all back together. So one thing I do, we have a number of deodorizing products that are scented, apple blossom. These are a very large particle, so it's easy to see when a machine is picking up or isn't. The other advantage is they have a light scent that stays inside the bag. So when the machine is picked up, we do the final test. The front end is going to show the customer the machine functions. The machine turns on, it smells pretty, and it stays inside the bag and completes, you know, if there's any odor left over, it'll get rid of that and smell a lot better. So that's what we use for a final test. You can also see, because it's very light, you can see the agitation of the machine working as well. And I can hear it. I don't know if the camera mic can pick that up, but I can hear it going through the tube as well. I'll check suction on the hose. Great airflow there. And another successful service. I'll go ahead and document what we did with this, send it out with the customer, and it will be rocking and rolling for another 2 years before they bring it back for their next free maintenance.